What if everything you believe about narcissism is incomplete or even wrong? Most people imagine a narcissist as someone loud, flashy, openly arrogant, easy to spot and avoid. But what if some of the most damaging narcissists in your life aren't loud at all, but quiet, subtle, even gentle? Psychologists have discovered something surprising. Nearly 40% of narcissists rarely draw attention openly. Instead, they quietly manipulate emotions from the shadows. But how can someone gentle and humble be considered narcissistic? To uncover the truth, we must first rethink an ancient story, the Greek myth of Narcissus, a young man obsessed with his reflection. Most people interpret his downfall as pure vanity. But consider a different angle. What if Narcissus wasn't driven by pride, but by fear? Fear of discovering that beneath the beautiful mask he showed to the world was someone ordinary, flawed, and painfully human. Could Narcissus's obsession with his reflection have been less about admiration and more about avoiding a deeper truth? Carl Jung, one of psychology's greatest thinkers, believed every person wears a mask, a persona, carefully designed to show the world exactly what we wish to portray, hiding everything else. Some masks are bold, confident, and dazzling, designed to attract admiration. Others are humble, quiet, gentle, subtly eliciting sympathy. Yet beneath these masks lies a hidden self Jung called the shadow, the place where insecurity, shame, fear, and resentment dwell. Whether loud or quiet, charismatic or gentle, narcissists share a hidden wound, an emptiness they desperately try to fill through external validation. The loud narcissist seeks admiration openly, while the quiet narcissist seeks sympathy subtly. Both wear masks to avoid facing who they really are, but here's an uncomfortable truth. These masks aren't limited to narcissists alone. Perhaps you too wear masks to hide the parts of yourself you'd rather not face. In this exploration, you'll discover that narcissism isn't always shouting. It can whisper gently, deceiving even those closest to it. But why should you care? Because when you clearly understand these two faces side by side, you gain the power not only to recognize narcissism in others, but also to confront uncomfortable truths within yourself. Truths that, once acknowledged, can lead to genuine freedom. Carl Jung once made a statement so profound it might unsettle you. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. The masks we wear, the personas, aren't just social conveniences. They're carefully designed illusions we create to protect ourselves. The persona helps us navigate society, but when we become so attached to our masks that we mistake them for our true selves, we lose something vital: authenticity. The overt narcissist's mask is unmistakable. Charismatic, dominant, and captivating. Imagine the person who commands every conversation effortlessly, basking in praise and attention. Perhaps it's a boss who boldly proclaims their brilliance, or a friend whose life seems to revolve around constant validation. At first glance, their confidence is appealing, even inspiring. Yet beneath this glittering surface is something fragile, a deep fear of being exposed as inadequate or ordinary. Their persona isn't genuine confidence, it's a performance driven by hidden insecurity. Studies show something astonishing. Although overt narcissists are initially charismatic and likable, nearly 70% of their personal relationships collapse rapidly within 1 year, exhausted by their endless demand for validation. But narcissism doesn't always announce itself boldly. Think instead of someone you know who's gentle, humble, and quietly suffering. They seem harmless, even sympathetic, but subtly manipulate your emotions. Perhaps it's the friend who regularly dismisses their own achievements, quietly prompting your reassurance, or a coworker who softly sighs about being overlooked, silently urging you to notice their quiet heroism. This subtle behavior isn't authentic humility, it's covert narcissism, gentle manipulation disguised as vulnerability. Both personas serve the same hidden purpose: to protect us from confronting the uncomfortable parts of ourselves we'd rather keep hidden. Yet Jung warned that when we rely too heavily on these masks, we become strangers to our own souls. We begin believing our performances, losing sight of our authentic selves beneath the mask. Consider honestly, have you ever found yourself pretending, acting more confident, or perhaps more modest than you truly feel inside? Have you worn masks, even subtly, to earn admiration or sympathy? Facing these uncomfortable questions isn't easy, but as Jung wisely reminds us, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Your journey toward understanding narcissism and toward genuinely knowing yourself begins precisely at this moment when you're brave enough to look behind your own mask. Imagine someone you know who radiates confidence, strength, and charm. People flock around them, drawn in by their magnetic presence, yet one day, after receiving a single minor criticism, this seemingly invincible person explodes with rage or withdraws into deep despair. What you've just witnessed isn't simply a bad moment, it's their hidden shadow breaking through the carefully maintained persona. Carl Jung described the shadow as everything we don't wish to see about ourselves, the buried fears, resentments, shameful desires, and painful insecurities we keep deeply hidden beneath the masks we wear. The shadow holds immense power precisely because we deny its existence. And for narcissists, both overt and covert, confronting the shadow isn't just frightening, it's almost unbearable. Beneath the overt narcissist's dazzling confidence hides a secret terror of inadequacy and insignificance. They perform strength because deep down they feel anything but strong. Their mask isn't just a tool for admiration, it's protective armor against the haunting possibility of discovering that without praise, they are simply ordinary. Psychologist Otto Kernberg found that overt narcissists have a fragile inner self filled with anxiety, rage, and shame. Even small criticisms feel catastrophic, threatening to expose the very vulnerabilities they've spent their lives hiding. Meanwhile, the covert narcissist's shadow whispers quietly yet dangerously. Beneath their soft-spoken, modest facade brews an unseen storm. Resentment and envy simmer quietly, driven by a silent belief that they deserve special recognition. Though outwardly humble, their shadow holds a profound sense of entitlement and quiet superiority. These hidden feelings manifest subtly through passive-aggressive comments, quiet emotional manipulation, or guilt-inducing self-sacrifice. Their persona of gentle martyrdom conceals a carefully guarded shadow filled with bitterness at a world they believe refuses to acknowledge their hidden greatness. But why are these shadows so powerful and so terrifying to confront? Jung explained, there is no coming to consciousness without pain. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. Narcissists resist confronting their shadows because doing so means shattering the personas they've spent lifetimes constructing. It means admitting that beneath their masks, they're vulnerable, flawed, and deeply human. Yet here's the crucial insight. Ignoring our shadows doesn't weaken them, it strengthens them. Think of your own life. Have you ever felt suddenly overwhelmed by anger, jealousy, or insecurity, wondering where those intense emotions came from? Those unexpected moments are your shadow breaking free, reminding you it exists. Jung warned, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Whether narcissistic or not, confronting your shadow means facing difficult truths. It requires courage to admit the darker parts of yourself you've worked so hard to hide. But this uncomfortable process isn't punishment. It's liberation. It's the beginning of a genuine understanding of yourself, enabling you to move beyond performance, beyond masks, into real authenticity. Have you ever encountered someone whose charisma is so compelling, so dazzling, you initially felt privileged just to know them? Perhaps a dynamic leader at work who effortlessly inspires loyalty, or a charming friend who instantly captivates everyone around them. Yet over time you notice something unsettling. Conversations always return to their achievements. Friendships seem dependent on admiration. Criticism, even constructive, leads to disproportionate anger or hurt feelings. This is the reality of overt narcissism. The mask is magnetic, charismatic, powerful, but beneath it lies an unsettling fragility. While overt narcissists initially attract many admirers, research reveals an astonishing truth. Nearly 70% of their personal relationships collapse within 1 year due to exhaustion from constant demands for admiration. This statistic underscores a crucial point. Overt narcissists aren't truly confident, they're constantly performing, forever afraid of losing the validation they desperately need. Literature vividly illustrates this hidden tragedy. Take Jay Gatsby, whose lavish parties and extravagant lifestyle were meticulously crafted to impress a woman, and symbolically the world, hoping external validation would finally silence his inner emptiness. Or Gaston from Beauty and the Beast, whose exaggerated bravado masked intense insecurity that shattered instantly upon rejection. These characters capture the painful paradox of overt narcissism, dazzling personas that disguise profound vulnerability and emptiness. Now, think of someone you know, perhaps a manager or friend, who initially seems incredibly self-assured. At first, their charisma seems empowering, but gradually you sense an undercurrent of anxiety. Small criticisms wound them deeply. They seem unusually dependent on praise. Eventually, friendships fray and relationships unravel, leaving them isolated atop the throne of their own making. Yet why do overt narcissists persist in their exhausting performances instead of embracing genuine self-awareness? Because removing the persona would mean facing their deepest fears directly, admitting vulnerability, ordinariness, and human imperfection. They fear that without constant applause, their true selves aren't enough. Jung emphasized this clearly. People will do anything to avoid facing their own souls. For the overt narcissist, maintaining the mask feels safer, even if it traps them in perpetual anxiety. But imagine if that charismatic friend or colleague dared to confront their hidden insecurities. Imagine the relief they'd experience in abandoning their exhausting performance, finally discovering that genuine self-worth doesn't require constant applause. They might still be charismatic, but their charisma would now inspire rather than manipulate, connect rather than dominate. Jung wisely warned, "Whoever looks outside dreams, whoever looks inside awakes." Overt narcissists remain trapped by their constant outward gaze, chasing validation that can never fully satisfy. Only by looking inward, facing their hidden fears and accepting their imperfections, can they find the lasting fulfillment and authentic confidence they've always desperately sought. Have you ever met someone so gentle, so humble, so quietly suffering that your heart instinctively reached out to comfort them? Perhaps it was a friend who always seemed overlooked, quietly hinting at their hardships, subtly seeking your reassurance. Or a family member whose generosity never quite felt genuine, every favor seeming to carry invisible strings, leaving you indebted and uncomfortable without ever knowing why. At first glance, these individuals appear the exact opposite of what you'd label a narcissist. Yet that's precisely what makes covert narcissism dangerously deceptive. Covert narcissists don't loudly demand attention. Instead, they quietly orchestrate it through subtle emotional manipulation. Psychology reveals an unsettling truth. Beneath their gentle exterior is a carefully hidden sense of entitlement, resentment, and quiet superiority. They believe, deep down, they deserve special recognition, not because they openly ask for it, but precisely because they don't. They expect others to notice their humility, their sacrifices, their quiet heroism, and when others inevitably fail, they quietly seethe, viewing themselves as misunderstood victims. Dickens's character Uriah Heep famously embodied this subtle manipulation, constantly claiming to be ever so humble, yet secretly orchestrating events to gain influence. Heap's humility wasn't genuine. It was a carefully crafted performance designed to win sympathy, trust, and ultimately control. Like Uriah Heep, covert narcissists weaponize humility, subtly guiding your empathy and compassion to serve their hidden needs. The danger isn't their visible arrogance, but their invisible manipulation, the quiet way they erode emotional boundaries, leaving those around them feeling guilty, drained, and confused without understanding exactly why. Studies have shown covert narcissism can be even more psychologically damaging to relationships than overt narcissism, precisely because it's harder to detect. Victims of covert narcissists often question their own judgment, constantly feeling they're somehow failing the person they care about. But why do covert narcissists behave this way? Because openly admitting their true desires would destroy the mask of innocence they've constructed. For them, authentic vulnerability isn't just uncomfortable, it's unimaginable. They can't openly ask for validation without risking exposure of their hidden entitlement, envy, and resentment. Sam Vaknin, an expert on narcissism, highlights the painful paradox of the covert narcissist. They're constantly trapped between grandiosity and insecurity, secretly convinced of their specialness, yet terrified of being exposed as inadequate. Their humility is not genuine modesty, but quiet desperation, a silent plea for acknowledgement disguised as self-sacrifice. But here's the deeper tragedy: the covert narcissist's mask prevents genuine connection. Because their persona is rooted in subtle manipulation rather than honest communication, they remain forever misunderstood, trapped in perpetual loneliness. The covert narcissist's mask feels impossible to remove precisely because they've worn it so convincingly. Yet true liberation, genuine emotional intimacy, begins the moment they courageously confront the uncomfortable truths hiding beneath their humility. Jung reminds us profoundly, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. For covert narcissists, this means facing their hidden resentments openly, acknowledging their quiet entitlement honestly, and risking real vulnerability for perhaps the first time in their lives. Only then can their gentle demeanor transform into authentic empathy, their humility become genuine modesty. Only then can they finally experience the emotional freedom they've always craved, but have never allowed themselves to reach. Throughout this exploration, we've uncovered a powerful, uncomfortable truth. Beneath both overt and covert narcissism lies the same painful split, the separation between the masks we wear publicly and the hidden self we keep buried. Carl Jung believed this struggle isn't unique to narcissists, but reflects a universal challenge. Yet narcissists dramatize this division to such extremes that it isolates them deeply. Trapping them behind masks they eventually mistake for their true identities. But here's the critical question: what happens if we dare remove these masks? What lies beyond the performance of charisma or humility? Jung offers a profound answer. True psychological freedom, he believed, only begins when we courageously integrate these hidden parts of ourselves. He called this transformative journey individuation, the lifelong process of becoming authentically whole, merging the persona and shadow into a unified self. However, confronting our hidden selves can feel terrifying, especially for narcissists. For overt narcissists, embracing authenticity means acknowledging their ordinariness and imperfections openly, relinquishing their dependence on external applause. For covert narcissists, it requires admitting their hidden resentment, envy, and quiet entitlement openly, abandoning the subtle manipulations they've perfected. Both types fear removing their masks because these masks have become their entire identities. Jung understood this clearly, warning us, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. Yet, consider a true story. A successful executive, admired widely for his confidence and charisma, privately felt trapped by anxiety. Constantly performing strength, he secretly feared that without admiration he'd become invisible. One day, exhausted by maintaining his performance, he risked vulnerability. In a moment of courage, he openly admitted his insecurities to a trusted colleague. Expecting rejection, he instead discovered genuine connection and authentic support, transforming his relationships and finally freeing him from his lifelong anxiety. This isn't just a rare event, it's precisely what happens when we dare to remove our masks. Real self-worth never requires external applause or quiet manipulation. It comes from authentic self-acceptance, acknowledging our imperfections openly without shame. Heinz Kohut, a pioneering psychologist, emphasized this clearly. Healing narcissism involves developing internal stability, independent of external validation. In other words, the validation narcissists desperately seek outside themselves must instead be found within. Imagine overt narcissists who channel their charisma into genuine leadership, inspiring without dominating. Imagine covert narcissists who transform their gentle sensitivity into authentic empathy, connecting without manipulation. This transformation isn't fantasy. It's exactly what Jung envisioned when describing individuation, the courageous act of confronting our hidden selves, embracing the painful truths we've avoided, and integrating them openly into our identities. Ultimately, this journey toward authenticity isn't just for narcissists, it's for each of us. Reflect honestly, when have you hidden behind a mask, quietly afraid that your true self wouldn't be accepted? Jung profoundly reminds us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Your journey toward genuine authenticity begins not in perfection, but in honest vulnerability, in admitting openly, this is who I truly am, imperfections and all. If today's exploration resonated, if it helped you recognize masks around you or perhaps within you, then this moment is an invitation. Don't simply walk away unchanged. Take action now. Click the like button right now to ensure this message reaches someone who desperately needs it. Share this video with anyone you believe deserves emotional freedom, and subscribe, because the journey toward genuine self-awareness isn't something we should ever walk alone. Together, let's create a community built not on masks, but on the powerful freedom that comes from living authentically, openly, and courageously as ourselves.